Hello again, everyone, to another episode of Stallions Run, a more somber episode. We got to talk about, unfortunately, some cut downs that happened this week. A lot of news to get into. Of course, as always, I'm your host, Buck. Uh, Scout, I mean, you're here. We have a lot to talk about, from retirement to basically seeing a good chunk of the team, unfortunately, get removed from the roster due to kind of how the way the UFL is doing their cut downs this season. I guess let's get right into it. What's kind of been your thoughts of just, but not just detailed events, but like kind of your overall thoughts of this week so far?
Yeah, somber week for sure. I think it was well done, honestly, from the UFL. Like they got the announcements out almost instantaneously. I think there was a lot of players that it was a heavy heart that they had to admit it to. I know I made a post about Bobby Holly. I do think some of those players probably saw it coming. Obviously, Bobby Holly, he has that connection to Skip Holtz, to Louisiana Tech. But I think it was just like such a rush of emotions for everybody. But I do congratulate, or not congratulate, but I do applaud the UFL in general on getting those out. But there was a few that I think we saw coming, a few we didn't see coming. I know you had called Jalen Morton being on the cut list currently. I think that could be a thing where it's like we know he's a potential backup option down the road, but we did not see his starting potential. I'm not exactly sure how that will play out down the line. But there was a few I think no one saw coming. I know Channing Stribling was one. That's a big time pickup through the USFL dispersal draft, and there was a few others that I personally was like, wow. Chris Lacy being one big body guy,
Yeah.
never really had a chance to start. I know
All right.
you.
So before we get into every name,
Yeah,
we got news to get into. Uh,
yeah.
so so the cut down day was on the 10th. That was an interesting day, but kind of building up throughout the week, we started getting some ideas about potential names that hey, we could be seeing these guys head off at different places and potentially, go to other teams because we did see that with San Antonio literally on cutdown day, add a couple people who were cut for other teams. But starting on Friday, it was really late Thursday night. We got the news. Bo Scarborough, someone that
Mm,
we both predicted was likely going to be cut from the RB room, unfortunately, just due to injuries and age. He kind of made it. We kind of thought he might try for another team. He instead, he is elected for retirement. So I want to. I already said on Twitter, but I want to say again here on the show. Thank you, Bo, once again for kind of coming to the Birmingham season one, casting the potential USFL and what became the UFL. It was just really cool to see. And just I want to tell a quick story over here. Bo was literally at every single Stallions game in season two. Uh, even when he was injured. I got a
mhm.
chance to talk to him for a bit, with another reporter when we were prepping for a Steins game, which I think it was um, game two of Birmingham, New Orleans. And, we were just two guys standing on the sidelines. He could have just gone right past us. And he, was willing to talk to us for a couple minutes. And that was awesome to experience. So thank you, Bo, for, I guess the best way is just respectfulness, the way he has handled these situations. And I'm glad the UFL did not brush this off. They gave him a great send off and allowed him to kind of go off on his own way. So something I just wanted to say, and just how grateful I am for Bo coming into the league, giving it, I think, a true legitimacy for Alabama fans, especially, and just
No.
being able to say, okay, let's go into this situation the best we can, and just yes. So without rambling on, I guess that's my personal way of saying thank you to Bo right there.
Yeah,
So
one with Bo, it was so crazy because honestly, I know radicalized is such a weird word now, but before Bo was on the team, I thought the Stallions were cool. I'd gone to games or whatever, but it was a whole different kind of um, vibe after he joined. And like I would say like the play that kind of like permanently put me in the saddle of being a Stallions fan was that championship game run that he had. He just burst through the
Oh
line
yeah,
and he went for a touchdown. Like because I don't think really anyone had that much connection to the league in year one. Like you didn't know these guys or whatever, but just seeing, especially after the play, just seeing everybody just like hound him and everything, it was just like beautiful. And I was just like middle of nowhere Tennessee at that time, and just watching it with friends and family, and it was insane to watch that play happen. And then we ended up winning the first time, and I swear I would have thought, year two would have been a whole crusade of Jamar and Bo just dominating. But hey, stuff happens.
God, imagine if those injuries in week one of season two didn't happen.
Yeah. Well,
Like
yeah,
we could seriously be talking about like season three domination.
yeah, and but I think with every step there's or with everything that happens, it's the butterfly effect, right? I do think that the other, the other 20 something starters of week one decided to step up after that week one game. Now that, we lost our vanguards of who was our team. So what is our team now? And I feel like the team really rallied around those injuries. Even though they were off the field, they were still always there. I'm pretty sure Jamar was also always there.
He
Um,
was.
but it's one of those things that I would have loved to see both realities play out. I do think we would have still won the championship with Jamar, with Bo. I don't think that necessarily changes. But then also, like last year specifically, we saw like Zaquandre White just play out of his mind. Alex Magoo probably was the best quarterback, and I know Pat Ruffino had dropped a little advanced stat on us that he was like playing the best stretch of 10 games that anybody had in spring football. So, but yeah.
Yeah. Uh, God. So once again, I guess from everyone here at UFM, thank you, Bo. Like seriously, like that. Just I think even with retirement, he helped spring football in some way,
Yeah.
just giving it that edge. So thank you. So we had that. A lot of people, including myself, unfortunately, did have him as a cut candidate because of what was going on.
Yeah.
I think that decision really helped Birmingham also because that was one less name you had to go in and say, okay, how are we going to address this situation? So yeah, that happened. Saturday we didn't get any news. It was mainly just all right. Let's kind of see how things are going. We did have the scrimmage with Arlington that did happen. Uh, I, no one really kept score, so I can't tell you who won or lost that. But apparently Birmingham players did do really good, and it was making those hard choices in terms of who is going to have to leave the team now. So Scott, I see you at your computer. I think you're pulling up the list. I already have it pulled up.
Yeah,
So
I
shall we
was
get into the kind of
totally different things. But yeah, yeah, yeah.
uh,
Let's get into the
yeah?
cuts.
Let's get into the cuts. All right. So this is one that I was very surprised about. Calvin Ashley, defensive lineman from Auburn. What what's your thoughts? I thought with the we did have a trade. That's what I was thinking about earlier.
Yeah.
We did have a trade. Let me buck moment. All right, do you want to talk about Calvin Ashley while I get the trade pulled up?
Yeah, so Calvin Ashley, this was one that really kind of irked me. Um, I really, really wanted Calvin Ashley to work out. Played for the Generals. We picked him up. Um, played at Auburn, obviously, or at least at Auburn the last time. Um, but it was just one of those where it's like we had a huge offensive line room. Tackles were dropping like flies across the league. I know in our camp, especially, it was more of an interior line we're getting cut. But
Mm-hmm.
Calvin Ashley, FAMU guy, Auburn guy. Um, Definitely sad to see him go. Like we always wanted a Barner player to be in like the Stallions to have that Vanguard Auburn player. But I think he'll be fine. Or I think he'll find a spot somewhere. He's a very good player. but I feel like just the Birmingham Stallions offensive line was insane. And I think one thing with all these guys, especially, is that like the UFL isn't the only gridiron football league anymore,
Hmm.
right? Like
Yeah.
the we could see these guys sign with the CFL. I know like Josh Johnson has already found himself in the CFL. Obviously, he wasn't a cut, but just a former Stallion that is now elsewhere. Also, you have like the IFA, the LFA, all these other different North American leagues that are popping up.
Hmm.
But yeah, but it's very sad to see Calvin Ashley go. I think that was one that slipped away from them last year. I think they wanted him last year, but he slipped away to New
New
Jersey.
Jersey. Yeah.
And then this year, they brought him in, and I just don't think he was probably a like let for lack of a better term, like a B plus player, and they wanted an minus player, or he was like the sixth best offensive lineman, something like that. Like the it's tough though. That he was a very good player. So
Yeah. And speaking of that Stallions OT room, uh, our offensive linemen, they were trying to figure out ways to kind of work with
yeah,
it because it was such a big room. In fact, that included a trade that happened this past week. Uh, Chauncey Rivers is now a Birmingham Stallion after Jameer Ross Johnson was traded to DC. Uh, like I said when this was happening, this was basically a way to try to, DC probably needed an offensive tackle, and
yeah,
Birmingham was looking at more kind of defensive edges, and they're just trying to figure out, okay, how can we do this without signing someone and having to worry about another cut? Because again, gotta stay within that limit. So make a trade happen. I believe Ross Johnson did survive the DC cuts also.
yeah.
Could be, yeah. So these are two good players. Birmingham just had to figure out a way to kind of maneuver around that. It looks like it was a good trade for both parties. So
Yeah.
something to mention with that.
So one thing with Chauncey Rivers, at first, I'll admit I had a very bad reaction to seeing us getting another linebacker.
Yeah,
Obviously that we have one position overloaded. I think we just overloaded another position, but we haven't heard anything back on that yet. If there will be an extra linebacker cut or anything. But after looking at it, I do like the trade. I do like his skill set. He's one of those guys that really persevered, right? He's one of those guys that these leagues are for. Obviously, he played at Georgia. Then some things happened. He ended up at Last Chance U, East Mississippi Community College, and then like after that, he ended up at Mississippi State, and then he was in the NFL for a little bit, and then now he's been in spring football. And I think he's one of those guys that like he definitely can play. He definitely can find a way back to the NFL. I think he needs an ability to shine, an opportunity to shine. Obviously, I think Birmingham will be a better. I'm trying to confirm. Was he on the Brahmas? No, Defenders. Um, or he was Roughnecks and Defenders going into last year. And I think the Stallions will give him much opportunity to shine if he does find the field. And yeah, like I like the fit. He's a little like he's right at the size you want, 6'2", 259.
hmm,
Um, like he's one of those where I'm like, I hope he makes it, but that linebacker room is so loaded that they probably like someone probably has to go after that. So
yeah,
that's a whole other like bag of beans that we'll get to whenever it comes. So
yeah. So we saw some other kind of names get unfortunately released: Terrell Bonds, Owen Carey, T.J. Carter. A name that kind of shocked everyone when we saw it: Bobby Holly.
hmm,
Uh, one of the kind of last true fullbacks. He's been with the team for a while, and I think everyone thought he was like an automatic in, just because he kind of meshes in with that Skip Holtz play style. I was shocked to see this cut. I was, he's a great fullback. He kind of worked within like getting some short downs that were needed for the team, especially last year. He was a big part of that. What's your thoughts, and are we maybe seeing a evolution of the Skip Holtz offense a little bit?
whew. So here's my thing. I know we did get a new offensive coordinator. Um, I think one of the things is that last year, especially, we were using regular running backs in that fullback slot, in that second back slot. We did not have as many downhill runs last year, especially after Bo went down. We didn't have as many
Mm,
downhill runs. We had more, sweeps left, sweep right, off tackle, that type of thing. And I think one of the things with it is that you could put somebody like a Larry Roundtree in a chop block position or in like a position to be that lead blocker, and you probably don't get that much um, of a lack of a return than if you put Larry or if you put Bobby Holly in a shotgun back position like you could put Larry Roundtree. And I think that was finally like kind of because Bobby Holly has great hands, he has great hip mobility, but I think that the lack of top end speed and like he's definitely a bigger frame back. I think that finally was the last straw, right?
mm,
And I believe he was also I don't want to talk out of my butt. I believe he was also on the older end. Yes, he would have been turning 27 this year.
mm,
Which for running backs is obviously like after 25, 26, there's a huge like fall off, and running backs are a dime a dozen now. So I know it's a big debate in the NFL and most football now, especially with like in college football. Quinshon Judkins went back to college because it was more profitable to go to Ohio State than it was to like go to the league. So
mm.
it, running backs in the current market are on the worst spot, and you have to be so perfect to advance. So, but yeah, but I love Bobby. Wish nothing but the best for him. But I think he was just victim of circumstance, honestly.
Yeah. We go to some more names, like Trevin Howard. You want to talk about Chris Lacy? I'll let you go and have that. Of course, the wide receiver from State. He was a fairly recent signing. I think a lot of surprised that he was going to be on the cut list.
Talking about Chris Lacy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Big body receiver, Oklahoma State. Lots of journalists had praised Stallions for the signing. I'm not exactly sure where this one would land. Um, he wasn't even. I thought we were going to cut two or three receivers, and then he ends up being the only one that we cut. Um, so I just don't know. I don't like. I don't really know this one, but he's a big body. Could have been a like something that they saw in the scrimmage, something they saw in the practice training. Just something popped up, and they're like, "Well, you're the odd one out." I assume with all these, if you ask Zach or if you ask Skip or if you ask whoever else in the decision making process here, they'd probably say they're all great players because I think all these guys, especially since we cut it down from 16 teams to 8 teams, there's not just one guy or two guys that are on your 58 or in a few weeks your 50 that are going to be bad, right? These are all going to be top flight guys. It's essentially going to be a roster of guys that are looking to make the NFL roster or an NFL practice squad. Like the level of play is going to drastically go up, even though we only cut half the teams off.
Yeah.
And but I think that some guys like this, and there's a few guys that you've never even got signed, never even got drafted in this Spartans draft that are very good ball players, especially at receiver and corner. That the lack of teams and the lack of opportunities will result in them not being able to play in the UFL. Again, with a few different cuts here, they're probably the first call if we do lose a receiver, if someone does hit the IR. But hey, until then, we'll just have to wish them well, and I hope that they find elsewhere to continue their career.
Yeah. Hercules Matafa. That's another recent signing. Mark Milton, Jalen Morton. I think. I mean, again, like we said, tough. So this is an unfortunate name that everyone just saw fourth string. Unfortunately, in this roster system, you know, last year, of course, he was the third string. He was again in 2022 for the Stallions. It's just like you know, everyone saw. Look, it looks like Adrian Martinez is sitting right now at third, unless something major was going to happen, like an injury or someone or just somehow there's a complete drop off or a complete rise. Unfortunately, Morton was like, hey, everyone's like, okay, he's probably got to be gone. Uh, you okay there?
Yeah, sorry, went down the
Yeah,
rabbit
yeah,
hole.
yeah. But yeah, it sucks to see that. He's been with the team for so long. Unfortunately, cannot stay with us for the third season. I do hope. I think he's going to end up somewhere though. It seems to be kind of there seems to be quarterbacks kind of starting to kind of start to settle down with how things are going. Cam
Yeah,
Sampson, Josh Cole. Go ahead.
yeah, Hercules, I will definitely miss him. He definitely added a extra element to that D line. But dude, we cut 4 defensive linemen in this patch, and it's tough. Like you start saying the same thing about everybody, but it's tough, man. Like,
Mm,
because we're gonna see 8 more names, and I feel like those 8 more names are gonna hit harder than the however many that they I don't even know, like 15 that are here. And it's gonna be tough. I know there's several. I know you just brought up Morton Samson. Even when we didn't talk about Terrell Bonds, that was one that you had talked about potentially being a cut. I really wanted to see him there. I thought he could fill, the gaps that we left by letting people go to the dispersal draft. Um, but yeah, but it'll definitely be a really tough time to kind of swallow the pill of, hey, we're going to cut people. We have to cut people. And I think for me, it's like, it's totally different than the NFL. It's like I've researched most of these guys. I've watched a little bit of film on every single one of them. And some of them I've even watched more on, like Chris Lacy. Like we basically did a whole 10-minute segment on Chris Lacy. Um, but yeah, but it's tough.
yeah. And then finally, kind of the last name, Channing Stribling. I was shocked to see this one. I know there were some people kind of saying, "Look, he could be on the cut list." I was like, "No, there's no way he's on a cut list." But here we are.
Yeah.
Stallions Legend, I guess you could say. But yeah, I guess I'm more overall shocked. I think there's a chance, like if we have anyone go down, that's a CB. I think he's going to be the first name that they call if he doesn't sign with the team.
Yeah.
Uh, what I know you kind of talked about this a little bit at the front of the show, but what's been your thoughts now that we've kind of been going through that list?
Like just in overall thoughts.
Yeah.
Yeah, it leaves a lot of people on the team still.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like we'll see more receivers off the board soon. I would say no more than 3, but no less than 2. So 2 or 3, right? We'll probably see another linebacker cut. Um, so we're up to 4. Um, I think D-line should be safe at this point. We might see one D-line, but D-line should be safe at this point. And maybe one more. We cut 3 DBs. But maybe one more like safety gets cut. I don't know. Like I don't even know because I feel like with like the DBs, how we've always viewed them from the Stallions perspective is that it's on the chart it's CB and safety, but on like the in the minds of Skip or in the minds of Zach, it's DB. Like it looks like they're basically outside, inside, or top. Because we saw some corners play, top safety and some safeties play corner, safeties play nickel throughout the season. But yeah, and obviously there might be one more running back should say the same, but there might be one more receiver or an extra receiver. I don't even know. I do notice that we did not cut a tight end, so that might be an extra one of the 8 that we see gone is a
To
tight
be
end.
fair, we didn't really sign a bunch of tight ends. I think we only have 3 on the roster.
I
So
thought we had 4 for some
maybe
reason.
no, I'll have to go back and check, but something to kind of think about. All right, so before we end the show, I wanna ask you one thing. Based off what we're seeing now, the roster cuts, we're seeing some surprises, but seemingly mostly what we kind of expected at the moment. What do you think the quarterback order is like right now? Because my guess, the way things are looking on social media and how things have kind of played out based on rumor, I think there's a chance Matt Corral is a starter.
Hmm. Yeah, I just had to check. We do have three tight ends. I don't know why I thought we had a fourth at some point, but three. I guess I might have been counting that is, but he never came back. Um, we're gonna end up on receipts, aren't we? Anyways, I think
Yeah.
uh the quarterback question, as I will call it for the moment. I think we'll go into week one not knowing he's going to come out there until they run out there, right? Um, I do think for this might sound so crazy, but I think that at the home game, they will start Jamar as long like if he's healthy by then. Just for purposes of letting him go out and be the first stallion out at home. Past that, I do think
Well,
that
hang on. You do know we have two road games to start the season, right?
yes, this is what I'm
So
saying.
why would they have Jamar Smith be the starter week 3 if we use Matt Corral as a starter for the first 2 weeks?
No idea. It's a hunch. Anyways, but I
Okay.
just we keep seeing Matt Corral so much in the Twitter stuff, and it could be old Danny just throwing a curveball, but it's so weird because last year we saw nothing of Alex Magoo on like in practice or whatever. And obviously, XFL versus USFL social media different, but
Yeah.
but we saw nothing of Alex Magoo in practice. Even when like there was 2 or 3 times where random people could go to practice and like would send clips. But never saw anything Alex Magoo. And then now we're seeing all the quarterbacks. So I think it's definitely a battle. I know that certain people believe that the job's already locked up by so and so or so and so or so and so. But I think it's a battle. I think like no matter what I say, no matter what you say, no matter what random person on Twitter says, that it's still ongoing at the moment, and then we'll probably hear closer, especially after the 50-man cut. But we'll probably hear closer to week one who the actual starter is, which I know I'm literally just being like the just the every 60 seconds a minute happens, right? But
Yeah.
it's with how Skip has been, he holds his cards close to him. I think it will probably be. I think. I think it'll be Matt. Like I think Corral will start, but I would not be surprised if anyone else. I think we would be fine with the 3 quarterbacks we currently have. I think we can put any of them out there. I know that Adrian didn't have the best spring game, didn't have the best scrimmage, but yeah, I would be remiss to say that I would not prefer, or that I would not be okay with any of the 3 that we currently have. And hey, there are other like if we really had to, and somebody was like if anybody's like, oh, I don't like any of the 3 of these quarterbacks, we need to bring somebody else in. There's a whole batch of quarterbacks that just came on the market. So,
Yeah.
but yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, I guess on that note, it's time to end Stallion's run. Scout, where can people find you and kind of if you want to talk about like stuff on like social media?
Yeah, you can find me at Southern Charm SP. That's where I post most of my stuff on Twitter, and then on Instagram, I believe it's just Southern Charm Sports or Southern Charm SP. We're mostly on Twitter, trying to get into more Instagram stuff as the summer comes along. Um, and yeah, and also just random shout. A big reason I'm wearing this Troy hat today. Chris Lewis currently or he's a receiver at Troy. Currently going through some chemotherapy and stuff, battling cancer. Just keep him in your thoughts. But yeah,
All right. Well, you can, of course, I'm Buck as always, and you can find me at Stallions UFM. Again, basically as soon as news comes out, I post my thoughts, kind of what's going on, and yeah. So that'll be it for this week's episode of Stallions Run. We'll see you guys next week. As always, until then, stay safe.